Thank you, Dr. Amit Porwal. At the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Amit Porwal and Chairman Scientific Committee for providing me this opportunity to speak to you on small incision cataract surgery in pseudoexfoliation and small pupil. Thank you. So I'll cover small pupil first because it forms a part of the pseudoexfoliation component as well. It's not moving. So what is a small pupil? It's a pupil which is less than 4 millimeter in diameter. And in the general population, the incidence is approximately 2%. But since I also practice glaucoma, I come across a lot of small pupil patients, and in the glaucoma populations around 60%. And the causes can be numerous: senile causes, pseudoexfoliation, myotic because of glaucoma because of prolonged use of myotics. Diabetic patients also have very small pupil. Even if they appear very large at the onset of surgery, by the time you are halfway through, you find that they become, because a lot of diabetic patients have pre-uveitic stage and post-uveitic traumatic causes. The problem with small pupil is the cataract itself is very difficult to assess, and you cannot assess the zonular complex stability. Capsulotomy, capsulorhexis is again very difficult. Nuclear delivery, cortex wash is again difficult, and IOL fixation in the bag is also quite difficult. So when we start the surgery, when we have a pupil like this, it's always better to stain the capsule. So the important thing is, excuse me, I think there's some problem with the audio visual. Important thing is to stain the capsule. The important aspect is not to allow hypotony to occur. So what you can do is you can plug the side port with a little bit of high molecular, high density viscoelastic, and then do capsular staining so that there is no hypotony and the fluid doesn't rush out like it is rushing out here. So the trypan blue can go inside beneath the beneath the iris, and then you can do the you can see the staining much better once your pupil is dilated. Capsulorhexis is done conventionally. The main important thing is to avoid hypotony. You can do that by repeated injection of viscoelastics, and if you do the capsulotomy through a side port, unlike here where it's being done through a main port, then you can better achieve a good rhexis size. The important thing is if you have a small pupil, this is a quite fairly large pupil, but you have a small pupil, you can do 2 strokes outside and 2 strokes inside for each movement. So you get a little bit better at a larger capsulorhexis size. The only disadvantage with that is you get a clover leaf sort of a rhexis. So when you get a clover leaf sort of rhexis, the intraocular lens can rotate in the bag later on post-operatively, and it may come into the sulcus. But that's something which you have to see. No, I'm using the mouth. So many times once you have done the rhexis, you will find that taking out the cataract is quite a little difficult. So it's basically practically a blind procedure. The important thing is that you rotate, do a good hydro and rotate the nucleus in the bag. And the bimanual technique is quite rewarding. This is a large pupil in which I'll show you the bimanual technique. Once the rhexis is completed, you do a hydro procedure, and then you rotate the nucleus like this, clockwise and anti-clockwise. So you loosen the cortico-capsular adhesions. And once you have done that, you use 2 instruments. One to lift the pole of the nucleus. I prefer to use a cannula, either a irrigating cannula or a viscoelastic cannula. And the dialer is the second instrument. So you go beneath, retract the capsule. If there is a pupil, retract that also, and then use the second instrument to cartwheel the the nucleus out into the chamber. So this problem there can be some problems in this, especially if you have an incomplete hydro procedure or you have synechia between the iris and the capsule margin. Very soft nucleus can cheese wire. So similarly, this is same technique in which we are doing it in a small pupil. Once you have done a hydro, you find that there is a definite cortico capsular adhesions. I am not able to rotate the nucleus. So I go through inject viscoelastics, go through the side port, and then rotate the nucleus. After I've done that, you find that it's a little bit more manageable. So I use two instruments. This I'm rotating through the side port. I use two instruments to retract the pupil as well as the rhexis margin. The first instrument is it's a cannula which is round and blunt. I prefer not to use the spatula because it can always cut the capsular margin. This is another video by Dr. Ramakrishna in Tirunelveli. He uses the bimanual technique like this. He's got a side port here. He rotates the nucleus with the first instrument to the right so that he goes beneath the pole with the other instrument and then rotates the nucleus out into the chamber. So you can have your own variation of bimanual technique of nuclear prolapse, and that's very helpful in small pupil cases. Cortex wash and IOL fixation are very important. It's always better to use a good quality Simcoe cannula. And SICS is a combination technique. It's a combination of closed as well as a open chamber technique. So it's always preferred to do any manipulation in a closed chamber technique. And when you do the cortex wash, you should make sure that the fornix of the bag is inflated. And you keep track of each quadrant which you are aspirating. And once you are placing the intraocular lens, we make sure that the haptic optic junction rides below the pupil as well as the rhexis margin. And then once you have inserted it, I'll just pause here. No, I want to pause here. Once you're inserting the lens, it's important to pause here, make the haptic optic junction of the trailing haptic optic junction go around 90 degrees away, and then you glide the lens using the dialing hole, pull it down, make sure you visualize the haptic the rhexis margin here, and then you insert the haptic optic junction into the beneath the rhexis margin. In that way you will get a perfectly in the back fixated intraocular lens. Sphincterotomies are very useful. They are one of the most commonly performed maneuvers, and they are also the first to be learned. It's always better to do it in a closed chamber, and you'll find that many patients with uveitic glaucoma, there'll be a membrane here. If you notice here, there's a membrane here, and once the stretching has been done, you find that the membrane is still adherent. It's always better to cut the membrane, take it out, and then do a sphincterotomy. If you just cut the membrane, you'll still not get the dilated pupil. If you cut too far into only the sphincter has to be cut. If you cut too far into the iris tissue, you will get monocular diplopia and glare in the post-operative period. You will also get intraoperative bleeding. Small multiple cuts are sufficient. This is the membrane being removed, and now we can do a sphincterotomy. Viscoelastic is being injected, and then after that small minute cuts are given at the sphincter pupillae. These have advantage of only marginally dilating the pupil, so you don't get post-operative severe glare. See, small cuts are being given, approximately 4 to 5 cuts. The only disadvantage is you may not be able to cut the superior sphincter. Stretch pupilloplasty is another important armamentarium which we have. A pair of bulbous instruments are used, and they have blunt tips and margins, and they have to be used from opposite directions. So 90 degrees apart is where the force is applied. And here we are using one main port with one side port, whereas conventionally it has been recommended to do through two side ports on the opposite direction. The disadvantages are that all pupils don't dilate with stretch properly, and it makes the iris with a lot of tags and floppy. And too many iris tags can occlude the Simcoe cannula while you are doing cortex wash. And during surgery, the pupil can become small. Iris retractor hooks are very advantageous. They retain the dilated pupil throughout this procedure. There are less number of sphincter tears, and the technique of insertion is quite easy. This video is again courtesy of Dr. Ramakrishnan. The main disadvantage is once you do a hydroprolapse and nucleus prolapse and you prolapse it into the chamber, practically there is no chamber because the iris is very close to the cornea. So you have to bring the nucleus on top of the bag, release the hooks, then make sure you bring the nucleus again on top of the iris. The other alternative is once you have done the hydro procedure, before you do the nucleus prolapse, you release the iris hooks and then using the bimanual technique, take out the nucleus into the anterior chamber. And they are not quite expensive. In fact, I purchased two for about 800 rupees this time. Another important points to be remembered while placing the iris hooks are that the stab incision should be placed at the limbus and they should point towards the core of the nucleus. And while you are placing the hooks, the quality of the hook should be good. Otherwise, they can nick the capsule while you are inserting them. The application time is only less than 30 to 40 seconds. And 4 hooks are placed 90 degrees apart. They do have some amount of distortion of the pupil post-operatively. Another aspect is you would notice here the iris is not pulled to the section. You can leave a little bit of, not stretch it too much, just tug it a little bit so that it doesn't damage the sphincter. Malugin rings, in fact, there was a webcast day before yesterday, and it was very interesting to see. In fact, many speakers in this conference, they mentioned that Malugin ring, even if you apply, the iris remains floppy. But personally, I feel it's Malugin ring ideally suited for SICS. The important is that Malugin doesn't have 4 point of contact. Dr. Malugin, he spoke from Russia. He said the ring has an 8-point fixation. So you find here in the photograph, the 2 rings, between the 2 rings, there's this bar which retracts the iris further. So you have 8-point fixation and it dilates the pupil very well. And I think it's far better suited for SICS. Pseudoexfoliation cataract is very important because we see a lot of patients, and history examination, corneal endothelial study, anterior chamber should be assessed, especially with gonioscopy to find out whether it's associated angle closure or open angle glaucoma. The dilated pupillary examination should be assessed for density of cataract and phacodonosis. Intraocular pressure in pseudoexfoliation patients is not, it keeps fluctuating, so it's always better to check the intraocular pressure multiple times before you plan for surgery. I've heard many people come and say, when I checked the pressure, IOP was normal, when I did the surgery fine, next day IOP never dropped down. So it all depends on how well you have assessed the patient previously. And you should always counsel the patient regarding inflammation. The duration of recovery because of inflammation is going to be prolonged. And during surgery, there is going to be excessive bleeding from the iris and as well as the conjunctiva. So this is a 65-year-old female. I'll just present a short case. Gradual diminution of vision. Visual acuity in right eye 618, in the left eye 618. And I'll just show you the photograph. Right eye was normal, but she had pseudoexfoliation, intraocular pressure of 18. Left eye was normal, but she had pseudoexfoliation with IOP of 30. And the only important thing is between the right and left eye, the normal, the anterior chamber was normal depth in the right eye and shallower depth in the left eye. Fundus she had 0.9. Now supposing this wasn't 0.9, it was just 0.5 or normal fundus in you could assess. Then even if with a shallow chamber, you would still have to do laser iridotomy, relieve the pupillary block which was existing, and then do the cataract surgery. So it's important to assess the angle before you plan for pseudoexfoliation cases. This is the anterior segment of the photo for the patient. The gonioscopy is open angle in the right eye, whereas it's closed angle in the left eye. So we did a laser iridotomy. The important, why I'm highlighting this is angle assessment in pseudoexfoliation patients is very, very important. Because during surgery you can have an intraoperative relative pupillary block which can cause severe positive pressure, and then we wouldn't know what is the reason for that. Post PI, the gonioscopy was open angles, and then of course for this patient, because she had associated advanced glaucoma, we did a combine. But if glaucoma was not associated, we could just proceed with a simple cataract surgery. So in pseudoexfoliation cases, you can find a cornea like this, very hazy cornea, and associated glaucoma, as well as sometimes you have a very dense cataract. So important thing is a very gentle capsulotomy. Once you start capsulotomy, you will know whether you need additional back fixation techniques or iris retractor techniques. So once you are doing capsulotomy, I see that the nucleus is not moving much, the cataract isn't moving much, so I'm confidently able to do the capsulorhexis. But if not, then I would immediately put repeatedly inject viscoelastics, do a capsulorhexis, put in a CTR, and then dilate the pupil with retractors, and then try to prolapse the nucleus. Many of these patients, if you are not able to place intraocular lens, always avoid an anterior chamber intraocular lens. Zonal dialysis forms a part and component of pseudoexfoliation, but because it's beyond this course, I'll just mention a few words. If it is there, the approach should be changed, a bimanual prolapse of the nucleus and a sandwich technique. If there is a one quadrant zonal dialysis, you can place the intraocular lens in that quadrant and then place a haptic in that direction. But if it's more than two quadrants, you have to have a CTR. Otherwise, we nowadays have iris claw lenses where we remove the whole bag and then place a iris fixation lens. So tips to tackle small pupil, this is the most important thing. The most important thing is, like I mentioned before, is to avoid hypotony at all levels of surgery. Thank you very much.